Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, the podcast that explores the stories and experiences that help shape our lives in the property management industry. I'm your host, Jodie Fraser, and today we have an amazing guest with us, Harps Kular. Harps is an accomplished optometrist and the entrepreneurial spirit behind Harper and Cooper Opticians in Cheltenham. And with a mini MBA in marketing and expertise in customer experience, Harps has transformed her vision into a thriving business. I discuss workplace wellbeing a lot on this podcast, and today is no different, as we will not only be discussing eye health, but how the workplace environment is affecting our vision. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So can you just start by sharing your journey to becoming an optometrist and ultimately your entrepreneurial journey into setting up your own business?
Sure. I've wanted to be an optometrist since I was 14. So I was quite driven from quite a young age and quite clear what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. I've worn specs since I was about 10 years old. So I knew what an optician did. And I did work experience when I was 14, did work experience, fell in love. That was it, which made it really easy from a GCSE and an A-level point of view. My parents are both self-employed. My mum was a pharmacist. My dad had a post office. He was a postmaster. So I watched them being self-employed for all my life. That to me was a natural progression. I was employed for a while when I was doing my degree. I had a Saturday job. And then after I qualified, I had a job as a manager, working for one of the big multiples. And then the opportunity came up to have a franchise. So I took the opportunity pretty early on. I was being qualified for about 2 or 3 years. And we bought a franchise opticians, had that for 10 years. That was really great from a learning point of view, from a corporate point of view, to learn systems, processes, operations, retail standards, which is really interesting. And then we set up Harper and Cooper about 8 years ago.
Okay.
8 years in January it's been. I've been self-employed for a really long time. I am now officially a terrible employee because I've been self-employed so long. I would not be a good employee now. And I really like having, a team to drive and to watch them succeed. And I love watching a business grow and being at the center of the growth at the same time as well. So it's good. There's a certain type of mindset, madness usually, that you have to be an entrepreneur and to be self-employed. There's a certain level of drive I think you have to have. It ain't easy all the time, but it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It was 8 years ago, actually, that I set up my business. So the madness definitely sits in there a lot. Certainly with the I'd make a terrible employee is, probably with me as well, especially when you've been so used to running your own show for so long. But talk to me about your mini MBA. First of all, I didn't even know that existed. So now I'm interested to know what it involves, and ultimately how it's impacted your business approach.
So I really like marketing. I like the idea of growing a brand and being smart and understanding how marketing works, not just let's just do a Facebook post. Actually, there's more detail to than that. And a friend of mine is an excellent marketeer for a really big drinks company. And she put me in touch with the Mini MBA marketing with Mark Ritson. So Mark Ritson is a marketing columnist. And he is an excellent marketeer. He's extremely famous in the marketing world, and he runs a mini MBA. So I think it was about a 10 or a 12-week course, running through the steps on how to do marketing back to basics. And then there was an exam at the end of it in terms of a case study, for example, and then you had to then submit that if you wanted to submit it, and then you got a grade from it. And I learned a lot. So lots of things we do in marketing, people can overcomplicate things, and it's a real good reminder that you think of things from the customer's point of view. You might want to build a business that serves a certain sector, but if the outside people aren't looking for that, then you're building a business that doesn't really have a need. You need to be able to understand what the need is for the patient or for the customer. And that really helps me now when we're driving campaigns, when we're creating campaigns, and we're looking at that, what problem we're trying to solve here from the patient, the customer's point of view, what are they looking for? And this is what all big companies do. We just take it for granted until you start thinking about it from a detailed point of view. When you're a customer, you don't really think about it much. When you're thinking about it from a business ownership point of view, suddenly you start analyzing everything, and it gets a bit obsessive. When I walk into M&S, and I'm looking at, how things are lined up and what the imagery looking like and how they've laid something out over here and the images they put onto their website and social media for their food, Christmas food, all those things are, real big drivers, and it all comes from a much bigger, cleverer strategic campaign. And that kind of stuff really fascinates me. Like, I love that kind of stuff. And it's
Mm.
fascinating when you're building a brand like you are, when you're building a business, building a brand, that kind of stuff can, it can be all consuming. I get why it's a full-time job just being a marketeer. It's really interesting.
Definitely. So, am I right in thinking that you had to relocate your practice at one point, if
Yeah,
I've
we
read
moved a
that?
couple of years ago. Yeah, which was a
Mm.
good problem to have. So we outgrew our old premises. So we wanted to get to a stage, next level of growth. And when you're trying to do growth, there's a degree of pain in the middle because you're in a space where you kind of stay where you are and you've got to try and make it work, or you look for new premises and you have to then do a big reinvestment all over again in that particular move. And we just walked past the unit we're in now and made an inquiry. And it was an absolute no-brainer because it had so much capacity, so much space for us to grow into our next level. Where we were right now, we couldn't do much more. In the old unit, we had kind of outgrown it. When I go into the old unit now, I look in there and I just think, oh, how did we fit in here? It was really, it was cozy for what we needed it to be when we first started. But the
Yeah.
growth that we, have had and are looking to keep maintaining, we just couldn't do it in the old unit. So yeah, so relocating premises is not an easy thing, and there comes a degree of pain, financial pain and stress that comes with
Mm.
that. But then once it's all done, it's massively worth it. It really, and we didn't move very far. We moved 10 meters.
Okay.
It wasn't a very big move.
Yeah, but it still comes with that level of stress. You move in 10 meters, but or move in 10 miles, there's still all of that stress around it. You might not need the physical, lorries and moving vehicles and that sort of thing, but the stress is still there. And how did you look after yourself during that time? Your own mental well-being and that sort of thing.
To think back and just realize and just take a step back and think, you know what? End of the day, it's just a property deal. The world will keep on turning. I don't deal with stuff that's life or death. And sometimes we can make things that are so big that we feel like it is life and death. Actually, I'm quite good at separating my time from when I'm at home from when I'm at work.
Mhm.
And I like to have that divide. That's a really big deal to me to have a cut off. So my husband and I, he's my business partner, we do this together. We have an agreement that after we've had dinner, there is no more work talk because it has to be a cut off stage. Otherwise, it becomes all consuming, and I
Mm.
just can't do all consuming. He can, but I can't. So I have to have a cut. That cut off thing, I think, is a really big deal. And at the end of the day, it's about the communication. If you keep communicating with your advisors, with your financial advisor, with the bank, all those comms just keep on going. That makes a big difference. Nothing is left to chance. I like the detail of conversation. I don't like other kinds of detail, but that conversation detail is a really big deal, that everyone's really clear. Make it really stupidly clear what we're going to be doing next. That's a
Yeah.
really big deal to me. How do you do it when you're doing this kind of stuff in your business then?
As you quite rightly say, it can be all consuming, and property management doesn't stop at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or even 7:30. We have a lot of evening meetings that we have to go to, like resident meetings and that sort of thing. And ultimately, me as a business owner, it doesn't turn off in my head. I find it very, very difficult to switch off. I'm always worrying about something. I'm always worrying that I meant to send an email, for example, and I just didn't get round to it. And it's through no bad intentions, if that makes sense. It's not because I'm ignoring anybody. It's just because I've physically run out of time, and then I'll lie in bed and think, oh, I didn't do that. And I quite badly beat myself up over it. A couple of years ago, nearly to the day, actually, 28th of November, I think it's ingrained in my brain. I was diagnosed with sepsis through high levels of stress, or continuing high levels of stress over a number of years. And I often find myself actually, sort of sitting on my sofa with my little girl and thinking, how close she was to losing her mother, but also to the point of why am I why am I continuing to put myself in those positions? I can feel myself even now, feeling quite tearful that I'm feeling that stress again, if that makes sense. I don't know whether it's like end of the year type thing and everyone's just rushing to clear their desk by the end of the year and it's just very challenging.
That, Jodie, is a really big deal. So I had a burnout just under 2 years ago, and I didn't catch myself in the symptom because I've been used to working like you at really high levels of cortisol
Mm,
for a long time. And I had a burnout, and I'd say I had a breakdown, a bit of
mm,
a breakdown with everything because it's extremely stressful when you're running a business and you're thinking about cash flow, thinking about customers coming in, thinking about have I done this right? How can I get more? How can we get out of this? All that kind of stuff. And just recently, and then I managed to get myself to a state where actually things can be a little bit calmer. And, you try and make changes and that kind of stuff. And then recently, I felt the same kind of thing again. I just thought, you know what? I'm not doing this again. I'm
mm,
prepared to go into that again because I couldn't cope with it. And it's a lot to think about and to just kind of slow it down. And I am notorious for being a fast talker. The speed I'm talking at now is a really slow speed for me. I'm slowing this down for you guys, okay?
mm.
So I talk fast, I think fast, I walk fast, I write fast. Everything I do is at a fast pace. And I learned this little trick, and I don't know what it was that made me think of this. And I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to walk a bit slower. And I'm just going to walk a bit slower from my car to my place of work. And if I am a minute and a half later, does it matter as much? And that really helped me to slow my pace down in my thought process as well, because I just thought I can't keep running like this, and I'm constantly rushing. And you know the juggle as a working woman, as a parent, as a business owner.
Mm,
It's, you cut off from 9:30 till 7, you're being a business owner. From 7 till 9, you're being a parent. From 9 till 10, you're trying to watch telly or watch some crap on.
mm,
And I just thought, just slow it down a little bit. When you've had years of high cortisol, it doesn't come down overnight. It takes a long time for it to come down. Therapy massively helps. I've had some therapy. That's been a big help in this as well. But giving permission to slow down, because growing up for me, I was always taught that if you were slowing down, if you're sitting around drinking tea, that's being lazy. That was
mm.
drummed into me from my childhood. That's what unemployed people do. That's what lazy people do. They sit around and do nothing, sit around and drink tea. You should be busy all the time. So to have permission and to undo that thinking, it's really hard. It's
Yeah.
a really hard thing to do, but walking slower has had quite a good impact. Maybe this is something to consider. What can you slow down? Just slow down one thing first, and then your mind
Mm.
starts slowing down at the same time as well. That did my mind, have I achieved what I have achieved because I work really fast and I work at a fast pace? If I slow down, will they then no longer be successful? What a worry, right? Kind of things. People who worry who think too much.
I know.
Slow
And
it
you
down,
saying,
people.
yeah, and you're saying that about, if you sit on the sofa, then it's lazy and, just sat there drinking tea. But, I don't know about you, but my mind doesn't stop. My physically, I might have stopped. I might look like I'm sort of mindlessly scrolling on my phone, but actually it's the food shop or it's checking my diary for the next week and prepping for that and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's I think I do need probably to go back to I also had therapy and still do on sort of not as regularly, but on an ad hoc basis. Definitely something I should probably think about again. Um,
There is something in the mindfulness talk that we always hear about, people always talking about as well. They're not wrong. It's just giving ourselves permission to do that, I think, is a much bigger battle, first of all, rather than, oh, just be mindful and just, drink your tea slowly. Like, what are you talking about? I've got things to do. But,
yeah. My tea will get cold. What are you talking about?
I think, yeah, so it sounds like you have some good tools around you. It's just remembering to use those tools because we're so used to being in fight or flight for so
Mm.
many years. To undo that, it won't happen overnight, but a little bit of progress is better than no freaking progress.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And progress
Absolutely.
is better than perfection. So, take the win.
Brilliant. As property managers, we're always looking at normally, I mean, I'm not today because I'm just on my laptop talking to you, but we've normally got multiple screens going on, and then, we're working solidly on something with various screens around us, and then we've got to jump in the car to a meeting. So then we're driving and I guess our vision or our eye health is taken a bit of a battering, and it's not really something that we discuss as a group of property managers. As you say, we talk about being mindful, we talk about our physical health. I don't think I've seen in any of the conferences that I frequently go to anyone talking about our eye health, and it's actually really important. Can you tell me some sort of common eye health issues that you might think are related to the workplace? Obviously, there's
So,
different environments, but you know.
so for people who are heavy VDE users, and I've done a couple of articles and some work on this quite a lot recently, is digital eye strain, which I see a lot in practice when patients come in and say, I use a computer all day, or I've got a new job on my computer, my eyes get really tired and get really heavy. And I feel like there's lots of strain going on. And, very often they're not wrong. And there's lots of things that contribute towards digital eye strain, that you're not taking a break from the screen, for example. The environment that we set up for ourselves in our working environment, having the heating on, or if you work in air-conditioned environments, lots of those things can tap into things like dry eyes. Dry eyes is a really big deal, especially with screen users as well. And there's lots of things that people need to recognize. I mean, the first thing is have regular eye examinations every couple of years. It's a standard thing. And lots of people do feel, if I can see okay, I don't need an eye test. Well, what about the health of your eyes? There's more to your healthy eyes than just how well you can see. And then they're thinking about the setup that you have. And if you have dry eye symptoms, for example, if your eyes are feeling a bit gritty, a bit sore, a bit uncomfortable, if they sting, the burning sensation, lots of dry eye things that we see. And it's multifactorial. There's not just one thing that solves a dry eye problem. So for example, if you're a heavy screen user, what we say to our patients is, and you have dry eyes, we say, use the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes you're on a screen, look away at something for 20 feet away for 20 seconds. That helps give your eyes a bit of a break, because when you have to fix working distance, and I know that I did to myself, when I'm in the zone, I'm on my computer, I'm doing 2-3 hours worth of work, I'm just getting my stuff done. Before you realize it, you look away, think, oh, my eyes feel a bit blurry, feel a bit uncomfortable. It's because you've been a fixed distance for a long period of time. And we're not used to that. Nature, when we were outside doing manual work, for example, 100 years ago, we didn't sit at one screen distance. We were always looking at different distances. And that was an important factor for our eye muscles to relax at the same time as well. And we've recently seen in the last few years an explosion of people becoming short-sighted because of the increased use of screens, especially in children and teenagers. It has been an absolute explosion. And I've seen that in adults as well now. More adults are becoming short-sighted because the amount of screen use that they're doing, because they're fixed at this distance here all the time. So lots of breaks from a screen are really helpful. And I know we have our setups from our desks. We have our printer next to us, we've got the bin next to us, we've got everything else next to us. So it's all really nearby. Pushing things away to make you get up from your screen and leave the screen is a good thing to do. Make it further so you have to get up and stretch. You have to get up and walk away. Those are really critical things that you can do to help your eyes to relax, so it doesn't feel like it's always a strain all the time. Very often I've given patients prescriptions for their glasses, not because they've got any issues with their vision, but because they've got an issue with comfort. And you can often give glasses to help with comfort improvement, not just vision improvement. And we underestimate that sometimes, how much importance comfort is in your eye health, as well as how well you can see at the same time as well. Lots of your colleagues who are in a car on the road, a little bit of work recently about, distance vision ability, driving ability as well. And when I say to patients, look, you're on the borderline for driving standards, you should get some glasses for driving. And they say, well, I can see where I'm going in the local routes. That's not the point.
Yeah.
Local routes aren't the problem here. You can't predict the local hazards at the same time as well, can you? And we do have this concept, if I have to have glasses for distance vision or for driving, that's a weakness. I've become weak, or, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. I'm very much of the opinion, if we can make your vision better and more comfortable, so night driving isn't as glary for you, for example, that you don't feel like, you're getting dazzled by the new LED headlights that are coming towards your way. There are lots of solutions for those kind of things. And it doesn't make your eyes any worse. It just means your eyes can relax more. And a relaxed eye is not a bad thing to have. No one minds a fresh and comfortable feeling eye. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And you focus on the fashion element as well. And obviously our listeners won't be able to see your fabulous glasses that you've got on today. They look great. And I have to admit the glasses that I have are terribly boring. They're just like black rectangle type ones. They were literally the cheapest ones because I don't need them all the time and that sort of thing. So I didn't want to spend too much money. But I have to say yours are beautiful. With the fashion element of it, I suppose, and the way that that makes people feel, is that how you approach it? Like, to look good, feel good, that's that sort of thing.
Massively. So, our mission statement as an opticians is helping people feel great about themselves, giving them the confidence to conquer their world. And I really have this belief, this strong belief that if you feel good in what you're wearing, in how you look, in, having good hair or great glasses or, a really crisp white shirt that you always wear, then you can feel more confident in things that you're going to be doing in your day-to-day life. And we treat glasses in the UK like a medical device. You buy a pair of glasses once, you make them last for 5 years, and hey, that's it. I can see, job done. In our friends on the continent see it from a very different point of view. They see glasses as a true fashion accessory. People in Spain and Italy, they will buy every season a new bag, new shoes, and a new pair of glasses because they treat it like it is a fashion element. And when we go to trade shows, so we go to trade shows in Paris and in Milan, there are two big trade shows that happen every year. And when I go to these trade shows and I see 60-year-old men like rocking a really, really crisp tailored suit and then bright pink neon glasses, and no one's ripping the mick out of them because they look great. And they're like, but I look good in my glasses. And you're like, yes, yes, you do look good in your glasses.
Yeah.
Old silver fox in this bright pink neon frame. He's just like, but I look great. And we don't have that level of self-belief because we're very self-deprecating as British people. It takes a very confident man, to wear a pair of bright pink neon frames and his mates don't rip him at the pub. But in this particular industry, like, actually, well, I look good. Actually, you do. I could look that good too. And I like channeling that in our business as well, that you can look good. You haven't got to spend a lot of money. You can still look good and you can still feel good, and we'll help you to understand why something looks good on you and how it looks good on you. And we are known to be brutally honest with our patients. So patients come to us for a slightly different vibe. They come to us because they want a bit of a laugh and they want some honesty. And when they come in now to the point where when they come in, I know the name of their dog, I know their grandchild's name, or when they went on holiday last year, they walk past and they wave like, oh, how did this go with the wedding you went to? It's a lovely relationship to have with your patients, and they really trust. And when I say they look rubbish, get them off your face, they say, yeah, okay, fine, I trust you.
That's brilliant.
When people leave our practice, I want someone to say to you, where'd you get them from? Not where'd you get them from? It's got to be the former, not the latter, because when you leave, our reputation is literally on your face. We say to our patients so many times, people never regret pushing the boundary in feeling good. People always regret going too safe. Oh, I should have got the other pair. I should have got a pair that made it a little bit more out there. No one ever regrets going a little bit more bold because it makes them feel good. Then they get a little skip in their step when they walk out, like, yeah, you know what? I feel good in these. I look great in this. And then when you come again, we'll push it a bit more with your style boundary, for example. Never where you feel like you feel self-conscious, but actually, I could feel really good in these. Yeah, you could look really good in those. I'll explain why you look good in them as well. So you get that for the future pair of glasses you get.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, flipping the questions a little bit. So if I was talking to a developer, for example, who was about to build a block of flats, I mean, what I do is I manage and look after the communal areas, the communal aspect of a block of flats. And I've spoken to people in the past about accessibility and being inclusive with their approach to building. So wheelchair access, access for people who are visually impaired or hard of hearing or anything like that. Is there anything that from your perspective that you could advise a developer to incorporate into their building designs?
Yeah, so for people who are visually impaired, a big issue for them is contrast. So things that when things are written, things are printed, and even people who are not visually impaired, who've got cataracts, for example, they will struggle with seeing things that are low contrast. So high contrast, they will know this is black on white. So if you've got black writing on a white background, yeah, really easy to see. Patients complain to me a lot when they can't read something and it is a black writing on maybe like a red background or colored writing on another color background, that reduces a contrast. Gray is rubbish because gray print is really low contrast. And when you have cataract, so cataract is the lens in your eye goes cloudy. When the lens in your eye goes cloudy, it means that the contrast that you're looking at is already reduced, like looking through a foggy bathroom window. Looking through a foggy bathroom window, something that's going to be a grey print, it's really hard to work out where the edges of the words are. You've got to really spend some time deciphering it. When you're seeing things that are going to be high contrast, it makes a really big difference. So high contrast is a really big deal to patients who are visually impaired, for sure. Things that are going to be clear edges, so well-defined edges, are a really big deal as well. So edges being well-defined. Thinking of an example, so I'm looking, for example, at footwells. I'm looking at stairs that are going up and down. If the edges of the stairs are clearly defined, rather than it being a carpet, so you can't tell where it starts when it finishes, and edging on that really helps people to work out where it starts and where it begins. That's a really big deal. Natural light is huge. Natural light is a really big deal. And I'm sure lots of people, not just people who are visually impaired, but everybody likes to have natural light accessibility rather than having artificial lights around them. So I know that you can now get lighting that mimics natural lighting. It's so advanced now, the lighting you can get. That's a really big deal too, because when you're then trying to read, it makes it easy for you to be able to read. Things are going to be difficult to read or small print when you've got a natural light, when you've got a bright light rather than a dim light. We need mood lighting for certain times of the day, for sure, when you have like certain sectors of lighting, but you also need some bright lights for people who need to be able to read very fine detail. Imagine like a watchmaker when he's got his little lamp under his watch. Well, he has that level of detail because it helps him to see what's magnifying much more. But natural light is really good, and high contrast is a really big deal as well.
Brilliant. That's some great tips. Thank you. And in terms of employers there, then for their employees, how important do you think it is to provide eye care benefits to employees?
Massively. So it is actually an employer's requirement to pay towards an eye test. If you have employees who are full-time VDU users, you're obliged to pay for their eye test, pay towards their eye test. If they want an eye test that costs 300 quid, you're not going to pay for that. You've got to make a contribution towards the eye test, okay? But most employers will pay for a basic eye examination. And if you need glasses specifically for the computer screen, you are obliged to pay for the glasses as well, pay towards those spectacles. Lots of employers give their employees benefits where they'll give them like a contribution towards their glasses, for example. And that's really good because it's really empowering. Lots of patients who I see, they would like to have a choice of where they're allowed to go. So some companies say you can only go to this particular company, but some patients want to have a bit of choice. They want to say, you can go to one of these three opticians and they can do the work for you. To have a little bit more I think empowering your employees is a really big deal, and giving them choice where they would like to be able to go. It is a big deal. And the more we can look after our staff, the more we can do things for them. All those employee benefits, they add up. That when you used to be an employee, I knew that as well. I've been looking for another job, and not just, will I have a good day at my job? Actually, what benefits do I get? Those are a big deal. And more employers now than ever giving health insurance. They're giving, some medical insurance of some sorts where you can have dental care, physio, a private GP appointment. Yes, it's not cheap to do that, but the benefits outweigh the cost to keep your employees in work and to keep them stress-free. As we know, there is a cost of mental health if we don't do that for our employees. Those things that we can take away the stress from that, it's a big deal. It's definitely a big deal. We employ that as an employer and as optical practice as well.
Brilliant. I do it for my team. They get their eye tests, and we have a separate insurance policy that they get for, claiming back against the glasses and that sort of thing. So yeah, I completely agree that sometimes it's not always just about the salary, is it? It's about the other bits and pieces that you can tag on to what you can bring for that employee. But I ask my guests the same question around common misconceptions, and it's obviously normally about the property management industry, but would you like to share anything about your industry or you as a person or anything like that, around common misconceptions or misunderstandings maybe that people don't really get?
I think one big misunderstanding is people think that opticians just sell glasses. No, we do way more than that. So we are healthcare professionals first. We are part of the primary care profession. Primary care is, the first place you can access care if you need that kind of care. So GPs, nurses, pharmacists, optometrists, and dentists are all part of primary care. But we are seen as a profession that just sells glasses. And if we can work out, if you've got cataract, then hey, it's a bonus. It's a bit more than that. And there are lots of optical practices and opticians now who are doing much more and really putting themselves out there from a clinical point of view. that we can do lots of things to manage, to diagnose, to support in the community, which was never really recognized maybe like 10, 15 years ago. There's definitely more to an eye test than am I going to get sold something? It's a massive part of it is to do with the health at the same time as well. Registered practitioners, and we are monitored, and we have to do regular CPD on on an annual basis to maintain registrations that we are still being safe to look after the general public's eyes.
Yeah, well, it's great to know. I mean, you're right, and I'm sure there are some places out there that just push for selling the most expensive pair of glasses and that sort of thing. But it's really comforting to know that, there are people out there like you who genuinely care about the customer and, as you say, like how they look in their glasses as well, because you don't want people to walk out feeling uncomfortable. You want them to feel amazing about what they're doing, and not it's not just about their health, it's about their well-being as well, which I think is really great.
I think that's a really big deal. I think if people who are ever looking for an optician, like, where could I go? Ask your friends, where did they go? Where did they have a good experience? But ask your family, ask your neighbor, who looks good in their specs. That's if looking good in your specs is important to you, ask them where they got their specs from. Because, was your experience what you wanted it to be? Google reviews are a huge driver. We use Google reviews when I'm looking for a restaurant. When I'm looking, to go on a holiday, I'm going to, book a cottage for an Airbnb, for example. Google reviews are huge. Read the reviews and look at the detail. I think those things are really important. And ask people that you trust. Where did you go? If you want something different, the problem is when you have opticians, like in lots of healthcare professionals, if it's just working okay, people just stay where they are, because sometimes the overwhelm of having to go somewhere different is really hard. Like changing banks. It works okay. It'll just do. I get in, I get out. And that's, for some people, that's absolutely okay. If you want more and you think, I don't even know where to begin, it's an overwhelming thing to have to think about and to work out, and then to trust somebody new, get a relationship all over again. Am I going to have a good time? Are they going to find anything? Am I going to go blind? What are they going to do? Are they going to rip me off? All those concerns that patients have are natural concerns to have. Our job to alleviate those concerns. And if in doubt, ask somebody that you trust. Where did you go?
Ask a Google. Everyone asks a Google. Talk me through if somebody had a neurodiverse, something like dyslexia or something like that. Can you help them with things like with that sort of thing in terms of their eye care?
So we have lots of patients who are neurodiverse, and obviously, it's a very broad spectrum. I have a lot of children who I see who ADHD, autism, for example, and we do have training in that. And with experience, you get better at working out what you can and can't do with that particular patient, for example. And the parents are really good. They'll say, my child has this particular kind of need. Can you help or not? Like, yeah, absolutely, we can. For dyslexia, yes, there's lots that you can do for dyslexia. Color vision assessment, so certain colored overlays, for example, will help a child with dyslexia to help them to understand what the words look like on a page. My husband does dyslexia assessments in our practice because he is also dyslexic. So that was a really big deal to him. That, there are certain elements of our profession that can do much more than others. It's just about knowing where to get that particular work from. So, if you have an educational psychologist who gives a confirmation of dyslexia, that's really helpful, because then you then get more support from the school. You can then get more funding for having a TA next to you. You get more time in an exam. It's a long process to get dyslexia assessment for a child, but it's definitely worth it. And, going to an optical practice who understands dyslexia is really helpful, because you then get that level of expertise, that level of knowledge, and where we say, I don't know what I'm doing with this next, or I can't do anything more, but here's somebody who can. That's a really helpful thing as well, to recognize a limitation of what you can and can't do. Then you can then refer to somebody who can do it even more than what you can do, for example. And that's an okay thing to do as well.
And that applies to adults as well. You can help adults as well as children.
Yeah, we absolutely can help adults. Dyslexia is tough, because when my husband was, for example, when he was at school, he was born in the 70s. And when he was at school, he wasn't dyslexic, he was thick. They just said, oh, well, you're just thick. So he just learned to adapt and to learn how to revise, how to study in a different way. And that adaptation was what got him through. And, we don't have the labels anymore. Thank God we don't. There are lots of adults who have just learned to cope with what they've had and haven't been able to have any support around it. And you can have support around it. Just recognizing those patterns, and then how to undo those patterns sometimes as well, can be a hard thing to do.
And what role do you think stress plays in our eye health? I know you've alluded to it, stress right at the beginning of this conversation, but is there an impact on our eye health if you're really stressed?
There is an impact. So I have lots of patients who come and they will say, I've been having a lid twitch. So when your lid spasms and there's no real rhyme or reason behind it, it is often due to stress or lack of sleep. Pick one. Just pick one of those, which one's in your life right now, and they'll say it's stress. And, my best solution is, hey, Barbados for 2 weeks is a prescription. I'd love to write that.
I know.
I'd love to say, here you go, off you go. That recognizing in itself, and patients have a bit of a lid twitch, always get it checked out anyway by an optician, but it is often, very often, a sign of stress and or tiredness. And then the things that we can do as human beings in our lives to help to build those down, it won't go away overnight. I had twitchy lids when I was revising for my finals at university 20 years ago. And it was the weirdest thing. I could just feel my lid just flickering just like this. And I just thought, everybody can see this. No one could see it apart from me, but it felt like it was spasming. It was muscle spasms. And it's a very odd thing to experience. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I've had it myself, and it is a strange thing. I mean, I think I've probably had both scenarios. It's been because of stress. It's been because I'm tired. My daughter's 5, so I think I've been tired since she was born, and it's just add a bit of stress on top, and both eyes are twitching. But
What a
yes,
combination, right? What a
absolutely,
combination.
absolutely. And finally, before I let you go, is there a piece of advice you would give to people who either want to maybe follow in your footsteps or around prioritizing their eye health? Any tips you would like to give?
So my biggest tip about eye health is UV protection. So UV protection is the biggest thing that we can do to defend our eyes from any damage in the future. You can get UV protection in lots of different ways. Wearing sunglasses, having lenses in your glasses that change color. Lots of contact lenses now got built-in UV protection that don't defend the lids, they defend your eyes. I have on my glasses a clear UV coating. You don't know I've got it on, but I've got full UV protection. UV will cause things like cataracts when you're older, and a bigger thing is macular degeneration. Macular degeneration is one of the leading losses of blindness in the developed world. There are things that we can do, and the earlier you have UV protection, the more you can delay those things later on in your life. It doesn't mean you stop it from happening. You kick the ball down the line further. And why wouldn't we do something like that? So even when it's an overcast, cloudy day, I say to my patients, even when it's raining, even in the winter, even when it's snowing, like it's snowing right today, for example,
Yeah.
there is still UV in the atmosphere. That doesn't mean it just goes away, but it's still there. You might feel a bit foolish wearing some sunglasses when it's, overcast and snowing, whatever, but having some clear lenses with a UV coating would not be a bad thing. It defends the lids around your eyes, defends the skin around your eyes, keeps you looking youthful, always a bonus, and it, gives you overall UV protection. That is my number one thing about looking after your eyes.
I know, actually, you were saying about the snow. My husband, he always has to have some kind of tinted lens or UV protection if he's snowing. If he's skiing or snowboarding, as he does, he really struggles. And on beaches as well, he really struggles with the light. I'm guessing it's the reflection.
Yes, it is. So he likes to have a polarized lens. So you cut down the reflections around water and reduce the risk of snow blindness. Snow blindness is a real thing. But yeah, you have to have some kind of, tinted lens of some sorts on your face. You never see people skiing without some snow goggles on or some, sunnies on of some sorts, because snow blindness is such a big risk.
I know I said that was my last question, but how can people find you if they wish to do so?
So we are harperandcooper.co.uk. You can book online. We're based in Cheltenham, in the town centre, just off the prom, next door to Biz, the jewelers. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, Harper and Cooper. It's super simple. And we'd love to see you whenever you're ready. You're always welcome.
Thank you so much. I might pop in actually and see all these fabulous glasses that you
Rude not to,
got.
rude not to love.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and a slightly different angle for me, but it's been a really great conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my latest podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links are in the show notes. Or you can contact me on jodie@jodiefraser.com. For more content and updates, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platforms. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, take care.